Hey guys, and welcome to Coffee and Games. I forget the episode number, so I'm just going to call it episode 8 because that's my lucky number, and hopefully I'll be all set with having my baby this weekend, and I need some luck. He's not coming out, so I have go over my coffee for today. It's iced coffee, and it's really watered down, and it's hazelnut, and it's really not very good. It's Dunkin' Donuts, but
We need to work on that coffee quality.
I know. I'm not supposed to have a lot of caffeine, so it's my watered down. But anyway, I'm really excited because I'm here with SWTORista today, and I feel like I pronounce SWTOR differently every time, so if it sounds funky, please
No
don't...
worries. My name was never meant to be pronounced out loud, so good start to the interview.
Perfect. So if you would like to let people know where they can find you and what you have been doing and what you are all about on your YouTube and Twitch and everywhere.
Much everywhere. Yeah. Hey there. My name is SWTORista. I cover Star Wars The Old Republic as a fan on pretty much every aspect of the game, from new player stuff to veteran player stuff. And I like pretty much every type of content that the game offers. I run a fan site called SWTORista.com, which will be in a link in the description. And I also make videos about different types of content you can get into, interesting stuff, and news about the game. And I also stream on Twitch, which is how I met Xandrii here. And that's at twitch.tv/SWTORista.
Awesome, thank you. And how did you start to get into content creation, especially guide making? How did that all occur?
Yeah, so there's kind of a couple different things that was happening at once. I'm in a guild that I really like. They're called Remnants of Hope. I've been with them for almost 10 years now, really crazy amount of time. And as I got more into the game, I wanted to share stuff with my guildmates, help them succeed more in the game, because they shared a lot of advice with me, especially when I was first learning. This was my first real MMO, and as many of you may know, MMOs are very overwhelming. There's so much more in them compared to single player games, and I got lost very easily. But lots of really kind people mentored me, helped guide me to try out different content, and now I love the game and love sharing that expertise back to players who don't necessarily have that. How did I actually get into making guides for the public, though? I listened to a really good podcast that I enjoyed, and one of the viewers had written into the show and said, "Hey, you two podcast hosts, I love the podcast, but you guys are both veterans and you mostly only talk about stuff for longtime players, not really new players. Do you think you'll ever cover new player content?" And I thought to myself, I could probably write a little segment and send it into them for every episode, like 2 or 3 minutes of new player tips on different topics. And at the time, I also had a lot of free time. I had married my husband, who I met through gaming in California. And the way the immigration process worked was I had like 6 months where I wasn't allowed to work. So I figured I might as well put that time to good use and learn some new skills. And I learned how to video edit it. And I turned those podcast segments into longer form videos and just went from there on and on and on till we got this huge network of different types of content.
That's awesome. And super late congratulations, but congratulations.
Thank you.
My husband and I actually met each other playing games as well. Well, from stream and then Dungeons and Dragons, because we're huge nerds.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's what I'm doing this Friday. I'm going to Dungeons and Dragons, so I can't say anything.
That's awesome. And so what would you say when you started playing SWTOR was the most daunting thing about the game? We kind of covered how MMOs can be very like, oh, this is a lot to take in. So what was kind of your thing that was a lot to take in at first?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So the most daunting thing was the other players. I wasn't really a stranger to being online, but I mostly only interacted with people through the browser, like forums, chat services, stuff like that. You're not actively playing with them, and you're not on voice chat with them at all. Like, no one knows who you are. You're truly more anonymous in the olden days of yore of the internet. Yeah. And one of my biggest fears was how would people treat me, especially because I was a older teenager at the time when Star Wars The Old Republic first came out, and my biggest fear was, will people treat me badly? I hear all these horrible stories about people going into like Xbox live games and just all kinds of nasty things said to them. And I got really lucky. I was able to find a community. I sought it out specifically. I wanted a community that would treat me well for who I am, and that made a huge difference down the line a lot. So my biggest advice, if you're looking for something like that, if you're looking to meet other people and play with other people, look for a good community. Maybe even before you start playing that game. I don't know about the other games that you play. I know, Xandrii, you check out quite a few. But for Star Wars The Old Republic, we actually set up a kind of service to help players find communities to join called the SWTOR Guild Finder, so that you can look through guilds and find ones that match up with what you're looking for.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. I
Yeah,
know
it's
that.
a big project.
Yeah. I've literally just been I've been messing around with the story on my Sith Marauder, and everybody just keeps mentioning all of these little tidbits, and I'm just like, oh, okay. I'm going to write that down. I have actually a notebook of things that I wanted to remember because everything has seemed so vast to me. And I was going to say, like, one of my most daunting things, and I don't know if you get this a lot or what comments you get a lot from new people who want to try out the game and are coming to you and asking questions. But my big thing was not the structure of the UI, but how much there is to the menuing in the game.
Yes.
And I'm just like, oh, I can't find this. And people are like, well, it's under this hotkey. But if you click on this and then you go here and...
am I supposed to know that as a new player? Right. So that's a symptom of the game being grown over the course of 10 years. So we play a solo player game. That thing's mostly been built all at once and then released all at once. In an MMO, each year, each month, whatever, a new piece of something has been added or changed. And it's a lot faster to just kind of slap it on than it is to redo the entire thing. And... in general, when people say they're overwhelmed, I try and tell them, especially at a low level, don't feel like you have to learn everything. You don't have to know what every single part of the UI means or what every menu goes to. As you start getting more into the game, as you do more of the story and you're ready to start exploring more, pick a singular topic that interests you and start exploring that. Start learning that one's menu, that one's UI, that one's quirks and silliness.
And one thing I will say about it, especially for the UI in general, is being able to change the HUD as much as you can.
Yeah.
Like, that is huge. And I wasn't sure, like, do you have a guide on that for people for specific things like, oh, I can't see, cast bars for my target, or, it would be better if something was in this area. So do you do guides like that, and do you have multiple for different people's needs?
So from what I understand, what I've seen from players is that everyone's actual preference is going to be very, very different. What you want to see is going to change depending what type of content you're playing, whether you're playing casually or whether you're playing at a more high-end level. You'll want to see different things. Like, you don't always need to see that cast bar if you're just running around doing your story quest. You don't have to worry about it. I do have some guides up about the user interface, and that's what you'll search for online. And if you're looking for more high-end combat-related stuff, there is guides out there as well. For example, I am a part of a two-person podcast called the Starforge Podcast, and we literally did a whole episode where my co-host, who is a skilled high-end raider, actually just talked about her UI and how to set up the UI in a really great way.
That's awesome. That was one of the things that I'm looking at it, and you had mentioned that you'd mainly only played SWTOR, and coming from, because I've played World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, and Guild Wars 2, are the main ones that I've played. And so the being able to change the HUD in that way is very reminiscent to me for Final Fantasy XIV, and I had a specific way I did that. And I keep looking at the HUD for SWTOR and the user interface, and everybody is going, you can change this and you can change that. And I'm like, I know. I'll get to it. I know.
Like it this way, though. I actually play with one of the defaults. I don't switch it up too much because I find it works for me. There is some options that BioWare has set up that you can choose. There's the extended quick bars and the advanced quick bars, and that'll give you 99% of what you need beyond what you get when you load up the game.
And when you're looking at all of these things and you're talking to and you're making guides for people that are in chat or just new players in general, do you ever take any of their suggestions for your next guide?
Yeah. So when I first started making guides, I was kind of doing it solo. I was just sending it into this podcast and there wasn't a lot of feedback. But over the years, I started making more videos. We see stuff in the comments and get feedback that way. And once I started streaming, that's when the collaboration and the suggestions and the tips started really working their way into my guides. I didn't realize it was going to happen, but it's just fantastic. I'll often even work on guides live on the stream, and we'll go research stuff live on the stream, write stuff
Nice.
live on the stream, and people will be like, hey, did you know? I was like, no, I didn't, or no, I forgot. I'd love to work that into the guide. It's very, very cool collaborative process. I like it a lot.
So how do you prioritize, especially with an MMO that's changing all the time and adding new content and obviously having new people with different questions? Like, do you have a list, or does everything just kind of come out with creativity or whatever you're able to do at the time?
Ideally, I would prioritize stuff based on what people want to watch and will get me the big click views, but unfortunately I don't. I tend to focus on kind of two different things. One is what I'm interested in, because if I'm not interested in something, I'm never going to get it done. And on the other side of things, I also do a lot of research on what are people asking right now. For example, one of my newest videos is, how do you get dark side points in Star Wars The Old Republic?
Yeah.
And that's directly focused on the fact that I'm seeing a lot of players ask that, especially in the newest expansion. So I do a lot of research on Reddit. I do a lot of research in my own comments. I try and watch Twitter and Discord and my guild and general chat and the forums and pretty much anywhere that players are organically asking questions. And when I see something start popping up a lot, I try and cover it if I can.
That's awesome. And actually, speaking of that, I had a question about that from chat today. So people were talking about how previously you used to be able to spend your like dark side or light side points once you hit max level or something like that, and that it isn't in the game anymore. Is that
right? So in the recent expansion, 7.0 Legacy of the Sith, a lot of stuff changed, and there was a lot of different systems tied into the previous gearing system. And when we started a whole new gearing system, which is nothing new for MMOs, it happens every expansion or every couple of expansions, but this light and dark system, which is separate from the points. The light and dark system, at the previous max level, you could gain these cool light and dark tokens. The whole process was kind of esoteric. A lot of players didn't even understand how it worked or how you could get the tokens, and you could also earn darker light points from doing anything in the game. It's supposed to be a really thematic thing, like I'm joining the dark side, I'm being very evil, I'm gonna be like Darth Vader, but before you could get them for like taking a taxi or crafting drink, you know. So they removed that whole kind of system altogether. There's a lot of stuff in this current expansion that's not entirely finished, not entirely fully finalized and realized, and that's just kind of what we're dealing with in 7.0. It's a good example of the current expansion.
Gotcha. And I was actually, it's so funny too, because I'll have people come in and they'll be like, oh, I haven't played this game in forever. I'm going to play it again with, to do stuff with you. And I'm like, okay. And then they're reminiscing about all of these different changes. And I'm like,
years worth of changes.
I have no idea. And then they're like, well, maybe you should look at these guides. And I'm like, okay, maybe I will.
Okay, let me just read this encyclopedia. One moment, please.
But speaking of having the light side and the dark side and having those dialogue options, would you say that that's something that is a portion of the game that really like draws you to it? And would you recommend the game to new players based just solely on the lore of SWTOR, even if they haven't looked at other Star Wars games or lore?
So the strongest aspect of Star Wars The Old Republic, by far, not just me saying this, like pretty much the entire community, is the story. The way the story is written and the way the story is presented, with the very cinematic cutscenes, the full voice acting, the fully customizable character, those are the big strong point of the game. Like if you're comparing it to all these other MMOs that you're playing, SWTOR wins in story cutscenes. I know Final Fantasy kind of comes close, but SWTOR wins. A lot of people also asked, well, should I try the game if I don't know about Star Wars? Maybe I've seen one movie, maybe I haven't seen them at all. I think if you are a lore lover and you're willing to explore the lore, the game is great. When you start your level 1 character, you really don't need to know anything about the Star Wars universe. It dumps you in as like they call it a Padawan in Star Wars, or an apprentice, like a low-level learner, and the game explains to you the basics of things as you go. So there's magic, there's technology, all of that you get to explore, and the lore is deep. Like in just this game alone, like ignoring the whole millions of other Star Wars stuff, just Star Wars The Old Republic has an intense amount of lore, and that's delivered through those cutscenes. There's the 8 class stories that you can play. There's the expansions. There's all the side stories. There's the codexes that you can just read that are lore. There's short stories. There's the trailers, just on and on and on. Big fan of the lore of this. That's one of the big draws for me, is the Old Republic Star Wars lore.
Like, that was one of my main reasons for trying it out. Was I had a bunch of people say, have you tried SWTOR? And I was like, no, I mean, I like Star Wars, but I'm a really big high fantasy person. I like Tolkien-esque things. And so for me, like, my initial entrance into MMOs was World of Warcraft because of that, because it was so, like, archaic.
Right, 1-to-1.
And,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so people are like, no, you have to at least play it once through for the story. And I'm level 25, and I'm literally still doing stuff for Darth Barris and Dorman Cass that's like level 17, because I keep doing the explorables, because even those have cool dialogue options. And I've not experienced, even playing like Final Fantasy XIV, Guild Wars 2, you have like a sort of alignment in Guild Wars 2 for the core story. For 14, you can just choose, like, you have some dialogue options every once in a while that might be fun or snarky or sad or whatever. But this is for every single bit of the conversation. And I was like, it really makes you feel like you're actually immersed in part of the conversation. And a little spoiler alert for if anybody's new and wanting to see it, there's an explorable quest where I'm actually surprised, like, the depth of how BioWare plays on your conscience and your guilt for some of the of these dialogue options. Especially today, I had one that was, you know, about people being created into droids, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be a Sith. I don't know if I'm okay with this, though, but I want my dark side points, but I don't know if I'm okay with this, so...
and that's the joy of being able to play your own character. Even if you are a Sith, you don't have to make the dark side decisions. You can be a light-sided Sith if you want to, or you can be a mix, or you can play your character as maybe they're just trying to be ambitious, and some of your decisions are dark or light, but you're just trying to get your way the best way you can. You really get a lot of choice in the matter. The developers of the game like to use the phrase "choices matter." For some choices, and not so much, but others, they can have a huge impact on the story and the game, and so can your alignment for some stories.
Do you have a favorite storyline, like out of the initial 8 that you can do you have an absolute favorite?
Yes, I do. So in terms of technical favorite, I like the Imperial Agent a lot, and that's more as a veteran player, because the Imperial Agent, being spoiler free, has the most amount of differences of your choices mattering. I played it with my husband, actually, and he was playing an Imperial Agent alongside of me, and we made different decisions, and we'd come out of our 2 individual cutscenes and be like, wait, what happened in yours? Excuse me? So I love that. That's really cool. The Imperial Agent is great for that. And then the story that I keep coming back to, that I want to play over and over whenever I just want to start a new character, is the Sith Inquisitor. It's got all that esoteric stuff that you like. It's got Sith ghosts. It's got ancient maladies. It's got, it's got all of that stuff, and I love it. And then I know the fan favorite for Star Wars The Old Republic players, the most commonly played one, is the Jedi Knight story. It's kind of considered the main story, kind of, sort of, not really. But if you're not sure which to jump into and you love Star Wars, go take a look at the Jedi Knight story.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a ton of people that were telling me, they're like, Imperial Agent, but only if you do it first or last, because everything happens together, and so it might tie in. And I'm like, well, you guys aren't making this easy. So
there's no cut and dry.
Yeah.
Best, last, first, later. Just pick one that looks interesting to you. For example, if the idea of playing a high-stakes Imperial Agent under Imperial rule and covering the mysteries of the galaxy while having to deal with Imperial intelligence sounds cool to you, go play it. Don't worry too much about anything else, For example, the Jedi Consular is often considered one of the least interesting stories by many of the player base, like even in polls and stuff like that. But a lot of players love it because it has that depth, wisdom, diplomacy, those kind of very Jedi things that aren't hitting things with a lightsaber. And so a lot of players also love it for that. So just read through the little bios of each one and pick one that looks cool to you and have fun. A lot of players try and play all 8. So you're not limited, really.
And with you talking about playing with your husband and having those two different choices, one of the things that my husband and I wanted to do was level together, and we wanted to be the exact same class as well, so we could start in the same area and everything like that. And we didn't know that you could take part in someone's story, but technically you would have to do it again, and then so I didn't know if you wanted to go over that for any of the new players that might want to play the game with their friends.
So if you are playing with a friend, a spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, there is really some important stuff you should learn before you jump in. Like, nothing horrible is going to happen if you jump in with a friend without knowing this, but there's a lot of hiccups and a lot of stuff that can really smooth your way. And I've actually got a guide called Playing SWTOR with a Friend that you can check out if you want to read the whole detail. But in short, you ideally want to pick each an origin story that starts on the same planet, so you can start together but not the same one. For example, you could be a Jedi Consular, your buddy could be a Jedi Knight. If you want to try out Imperial side, one of you could be an Imperial agent, the other one a bounty hunter, and they pair up like that. And as Xandrii mentioned, it can be really awkward if you both choose the same class. You can totally do it, just you can't actually go in together.
And so we were kind of confused about it until we looked it up, and then we were like, oh, okay, gotcha. So how would you describe the combat of the game to other people? And one of the things that I noticed was, especially it reminded me of in World of Warcraft Classic, the types of abilities and the way the global cooldown works. But I noticed that there wasn't an auto attack. And I was actually asking people about it, at least for my Marauder, and I was like, wait, I don't think there's an auto attack, because it feels fluid once you get more abilities, and so how would you explain that to someone that was new?
So for comparing it to other games, Star Wars: The Old Republic is most similar to World of Warcraft. Actually, when it first came out, people would often joke, and I think even the developers may have at the time, that it's World of Warcraft in space. It is very heavily influenced by the World of Warcraft system back in like 2008, 2011, that time frame. So you will have abilities. They are on a global cooldown of about, give or take, 1.5 seconds. Depends on your gear and stuff like that. And you can click one or keybind one every 1.5 seconds, and it's not very movement focused compared to games like Guild Wars 2. When I jumped into Guild Wars 2 the first time, I was terrified because I was actually expected to roll around and dodge and stuff like that. In SWTOR, there is a bit of movement, but it's not nearly as fluid as other games like that, or as ESO is. Another difference you may see when checking out SWTOR for combat is there's going to be somewhere between 25 and 30 abilities that you get once you hit max level. Other games like Guild Wars 2 or ESO, there's a lot smaller quick bar there to deal with, and instead you have the ability to, is it switch weapons? Yeah?
Yes.
So in SWTOR, you can't really switch weapons. You have them kind of all at once. And that's what you fight with until you decide that you want to change, usually outside of combat. And there is no auto attack. Yeah, that's a really great question. I've had that one come up too. There is what we call hitting the one key. You know, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to hit the one key, but if you don't press anything, your character's not going to attack. So it does get some time to get used to learning how to use your abilities in combat. Because it's less movement focused, it's more skill memorization, knowing the abilities focused. Right now, after the expansion, we're kind of in an awkward place for leveling. They revamped the way you get your abilities and when you get your abilities, and there's some strange gaps where you may not see any for a while. I think this may be adjusted in the future, but eventually by the time you hit 80, you'll have a whole bunch to play with.
And speaking of which, and you were talking about having like 30 abilities, is there anything, kind of like there was a period in World of Warcraft where they ended up having to trim abilities because there were quite a few that you technically had that were very situational that you didn't really use. Is that something that happens in SWTOR as well?
We had it happen for the first time in the most recent expansion. It was quite rough because many players had been playing, especially at a higher skill level, using all of those abilities. Like situationally, yes, but in all situations, they would be taking advantage of them when they could. But for a lower skill player, a more casual player, a more beginner player, that 30 abilities on the bar is terrifying. This is something we were kind of time and time again from players just entering the game like, oh God, I have no idea how to play or what these are for, and I don't even know where to start. And so they started trimming them down for 7.0, the latest expansion. And the idea was that, one, there was too many abilities for the casual player. Second, Some of them were good for some situations and some were better for others. I know in World of Warcraft you were telling me that they cut them down because they are super situational.
Mhm.
In SWTOR, it wasn't quite as strong in that way, but there was definitely some abilities that were more catered towards player versus player content versus solo content versus operations content. And that's obviously confusing for a very casual player. So now it's all on a tree and you're able to make decisions. So you won't always have all of your abilities at once. So feel free when you're in game to press K for combat, and you'll be able to open that up in Star Wars: The Old Republic and see what those decisions on your tree are.
Absolutely. And I do think it's cool that you actually have the trio for SWTOR. So you still have like tank, heals, and DPS.
Mhm.
And
I like that a lot.
yeah, and I didn't even know that there were raids or their own type of dungeons or PvP or anything like that. And my husband was talking about playing like a healing class where you like shot things and you could put absorbs on people, and I was like, that's so different from a normal healer in, different MMOs. And so how do you feel the diversity is between like the tank, healer, and DPS roles, and do you think it's done in like a really creative way for SWTOR, especially, being able to use like blasters to heal or tank someone?
I love the thematics of it, to be able to heal and not just only be a magic Jedi. That's awesome to me.
Yeah.
And I love my main role that I like to play is I like to tank, and there's 2 Jedi or Sith tanks and 1 tech class tank, and I love that I can be the tech class tank. That was one of the big things that drew me into the game when I first started, is I did have those options. I didn't have to be the magic user. I could be the sci-fi person
Right.
if I wanted to. And because the game's not necessarily movement focused, you don't have, I think, quite as much diversity as you might see in some other games, but the actual abilities look and feel quite different. I've tried out all 3 tanks. There's one that's stealth focused, and you have to really stay on top of multiple kind of stacking defensive stuff. And one of them is a very classic tank. It's got a lightsaber. It's pretty awesome. You get these cool shields and Jedi stuff. And then the last one is the tech class that has these different types of shields and self heals, all tech based, and they do feel very different when you're playing them. And that same thing goes for heals. I've healed less, but when I'm healing on my Jedi Sage, my magic Jedi, who's got these cool big group abilities that I put on the ground to heal everybody, magic circles, it feels very different from the smuggler where I'm like pew 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 and trying to get this healing off on everybody. Yeah, very, very different. And I really love that this game does have the classic tank, healer, DPS roles. That's something that's very dear to my heart for a long time.
And with the endgame PvE and PvP that you can do, even though I know you can jump in early, especially with the PvP, how do you feel that the difficulty measures up? Do you think that people can just step into a raid with friends and get it done? Or are there like higher difficulties that you might do that's more advanced? And also, people were talking about only being able to do the raids if you were subscribed. Is that true? Or
Yes.
Okay.
So raids are known as operations in Star Wars: The Old Republic. They're one of my favorite activities in the game. They're one of the things that really keeps me playing 10 years down the road. You must be subscribed to play them, and at the moment you must be level 80. It's usually whatever the current level cap is. And a lot of players have a lot of anxiety about jumping into raids or operations. They're like, I've heard they're super cool. I've seen these groups of 8 or 16 people running around doing these crazy missions with these crazy bosses that have all these fun mechanics. But I don't know if I'm good enough to go in. Like, I'm scared. Do I have enough gear? This question comes up a ton. So I've got some great news. I can't promise for the future, but in the current iteration of the game, as long as you have a raid leader who's willing to explain what's going on and make sure everybody's in the right role and stuff like that, you can go in with just basic level 80. You do not need any super skill or experience or anything like that. I actually like to run what I call Team Chaos raids, which we run in the mornings. I'll just be like, okay, anybody who's level 80, subscribed and on my server in faction, get in here, we'll do it. And we've had a lot of success over that, both in the previous expansion and this one, and it's been totally fine. There's some very basic set of level 80 gear you can get without too much effort, and as long as you got your raid leader giving you a bit of instructions, you don't even need to know how to do any more than press that one button. If you're playing a tank or a healer, you may want to get a very basic overview of what you're supposed to be doing. Like, if I'm a tank, how do I taunt the boss?
Right.
How do I move it around? If I'm a healer, which ones are my healing abilities and how do I select my teammates to heal them. But beyond that, you're good to go. Especially if you're playing a damage character, it's even easier. You can just select the boss and button mash, you're good to go. There is those higher difficulties you were asking about, though. So the story mode is not, I wouldn't say it's super easy by any means. A lot of the content in the game is quite easy. It's meant to appeal to the story player, especially at a low level. So the story raids are a little bit harder, not a ton, totally passable, I think, by any type of player. But there is also what's known as veteran mode operations, which is the medium tier difficulty, and the master mode operations, sometimes known as nightmare mode operations. And they are intense. Like, even the hard mode, the veteran mode, is quite difficult right now. I wouldn't even say it's like a medium tier. It's a little up there. You really need to know how to play your class, how to work together, how to play your role, how to keep yourself alive, how to keep your teammates alive, stuff like that. And then the nightmare level, I don't even think that many groups are running it right now because we're just hit a new expansion. People are gearing up, and it's hard. Like, I like to do that too. In the previous expansion, my nightmare mode group is still like, we're not even fully geared yet. It will be a while before we step foot back in, but it's very satisfying when you are able to fight those harder ones with your group.
And so you'd mentioned that the current arc is at 7.0 with the expansions. Do you get new raids, endgame content, new story, or even new map areas with each expansion? Or is it just like one of the two, or does it skip expansions? How does that
Star
work?
Wars: The Old Republic has been kind of inconsistent and a bit random about when and where you get these different types of content. So the only staple for an expansion is there's going to be some new story. That's the only thing that's been 100% consistent across the board. But the good news is often in between, you'll get flashpoints, which are the dungeons, you'll get the operations, you'll get PvP maps, but it's really scattered. This last expansion was sadly one of the smallest we've seen. We're not exactly sure what happened, but a lot of stuff got delayed, a lot of stuff got pushed back, or a lot of stuff we were hoping for never really showed up. So with the current expansion, we got a new storyline, we got a new flashpoint, we got a huge change to the ability system that I was mentioning earlier with the trees and stuff like that, and we got the ability to add a second class or a second way of fighting to our characters, which was also a huge change. So it was big system changes this time, along with the new gearing system. And then coming up sometime later in the year, we're also getting a new operation, so a new raid. We're very excited about that one. I've been hearing good things about that from people who have been testing it. And there's a couple of other stuff that's coming down the road. We just don't really have dates for it. Things like a crafting refresh, a PvP revamp, updated textures to some of the starter worlds, stuff like that. But it's not consistent. It's a bit random.
Does the level cap increase with every expansion, or is that...
Yeah,
it does?
It
Okay.
does. I guess that is the second thing that's consistent. We are up to level 80 now in Star Wars: The Old Republic.
And do you purchase each subscription when the update comes out, or do you just have to be subscribed to get the content, or how does that work?
That's such a common question. Like, how do I even get this stuff in Star Wars: The Old Republic? Do I have to pay $6,000 to unlock each expansion? The answer is no. So the way it works is originally, way back in the day, you would buy the actual game, and then every time an expansion came out, you had to drop like 20 or 40 bucks or whatever, and then you had to continuously stay subscribed the whole time just to play. No. The game is a lot more accessible now. It has a free-to-play option, so you can just jump in right now without putting any money down, and you can play all the class stories all the way up to like level 60. The first 2 expansions are free. You can make like 4 characters per server for free. So I really highly recommend the free-to-play version, as long as you understand it does have restrictions, and if your main goal is to play the story, just go. You're fine. You're going to be playing for like 80 plus hours without any major issues, I think. And then for players like me who are playing on a more regular basis, and probably you at some point if you want to get into that in-game content, you get the first 2 expansions for free. And then once you subscribe, the first time you subscribe, you get all current and past expansions with your subscription. You do not need to purchase the expansions separately. So you pay that $15 and you'll have all the expansions for the future as well. That's awesome. Even if you decide to unsubscribe the next month, you'll still have access to get to level 80. You'll still have access to all the story expansions that you unlock. You'll just lose access to a lot of the other content or other nice unlimited restrictions that are more focused on endgame players. For example, if you unsubscribe, you won't be able to run operations anymore. If that's important to you, you kind of have to stay subbed.
Gotcha. I was just about to ask if you could elaborate on that portion for staying subscribed, and also if you had a guide on it. So that's perfect. You answered my question for me.
Right, we do have a free-to-play, preferred, and subscribed differences guide that if you search for those terms online, you'll be able to find that. And it looks like they've been trying to add more reasons to cajole people into subscribing, because right now a lot of players are just paying that $15 and subbing because they're like, hey, I'm fine over here.
Yep.
For example, we've had something called a Galactic Seasons added recently. Other players may know this as a battle pass from other games. You don't have to buy it in any way. It's just kind of included. You can do activities over time and earn unique rewards on a track. And if you're subscribed, you unlock a second part of the track with additional cosmetic rewards you can earn, stuff like that.
That's awesome. And speaking of cosmetics, if we could go over a little bit with having items in your bank to be able to outfit your character, or having collections and the difference between those. I was so confused when people were trying to explain it to me in chat. I was like, I don't know what you mean. Do I need to keep these to be able to put them in an outfit, or do I have to unlock the full collection, or what? So
if we did a full talk about that, it would last the next hour
Oh,
or
no.
two. So just a really quick overview is, first off, when you press C for character and open up your character sheet, you'll notice one of the tabs at the top is called the Outfitter. And the Outfitter allows you to create cosmetic outfits with items you have in your inventory. You like drag them into the Outfitter and you've created a costume or an outfit, and you can wear that on top of whatever it is you need for your gear to actually hit the enemy
Okay.
with. And you can create multiple outfits. You'll notice there's different numbered tabs and you can click between them. So like one of my outfits, I've got a chef outfit on while I'm running around doing my raids or whatever. I've got one that looks like a pretty princess. You can have whatever you want cosmetically there. And once you set up that outfit, if it's not a rare item, you can just delete it or sell it, whatever, from your inventory. If it's a rare item and you're worried about it, maybe toss it in your bank just to keep it safe.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it secret, keep it safe, you know. There's not really a high chance that you'll ever lose an outfit, but if you ever decide to transfer servers, you could lose it. Or if you accidentally overwrite it, it's like a stamp.
Mm-hmm.
You'll need that original item to put it back. Collections are a really cool system in Star Wars: The Old Republic. If you collect a full set of Cartel Market armor or a full set of any armor that's in collections, they've been adding more non-cash shop ones to it, you'll be able to reclaim that full set as many times as you need to in the future in that character, or you can pay extra cartel coins, which are the what would be the equivalent in Guild Wars 2?
Gems.
Gems, right. You can pay gems or Black Lion stuff to I'm trying to remember what it's called, to unlock it across your entire account. So let's say I got the super awesome Jedi outfit of coolness and I got all the pieces. Maybe I bought them from another player, maybe I bought them from the cash shop. I pay a little extra cash shop coins and then I can have it across my entire account as many times as I want. It doesn't matter if I delete the pieces, I can just recoup them at any time, which I really, really like that feature for like my favorite outfits.
Yep. I actually did that on accident today with a crystals, because I got a black pink crystal and people were like, oh, you can add it to your collection and you can make a copy of it and have the cartel coin so it's on everything. And I'm like, oh, this looks so cool on my like purpley pink Twi'lek. So I made a copy, so I'm happy. I have both of them on my Marauder and I'm like, oh,
good. And you didn't have to buy an extra copy. That's awesome.
No. And speaking of which, how do you feel about the like having cartel coins and the shop online for SWTOR? Do you think it's a good method?
Right. Ideally, it would be a game where you fully earn the content in the game, like you would a solo game. You're playing Knights of the Old Republic or whatever other game you love. You do different activities in the game and you earn the cosmetics. Unfortunately, this is a game that they're hoping to run for 10 years. It has been running for 10 years. They're probably hoping to run it for another 10 years. And apparently you have to pay people to do that, to keep running a game for a long period of time. And the game is owned by EA, so it does have to be monetized. It's not like some small indie studio where they can put only their heart into it and not their cash dollars.
Right.
Like ideally, if I could choose, I wouldn't have the cartel market. But if I chose that, we probably also wouldn't have the game, and that's probably true of most MMOs on the market right now. As far as I can tell, pretty much all of them have some type of cosmetic cash shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most players at this point are okay with that concept as long as it doesn't leak into the pay to win area where you can gear your character up to the top or you can only do certain activities if you purchase them or stuff like that. So I think it's in an okay state. I especially like and I especially respect in this game specifically that if someone gets an item from the cartel market, which is the cash shop, they can also sell it to other players with credits. So if you just want to go quest your little heart out or craft your little heart out, earn a bunch of in-game currency, then you can just buy it from another player. And there's also ways to earn, and they've even added more of those recently, ways to earn the cash shop coins so you can purchase stuff for free. And you also get some free with your subscription. So I think it's pretty decently balanced. One thing I would like to see in the future of the game is additional cosmetic stuff that you can earn from different activities, though I do run a site called soteresa.com/armor, and if you check out the categories when you scroll down that page a little bit, you can see there's cartel market, and then there's these million other ways that you can get stuff, non-cash shop stuff like crafting, reputation, earn from flashpoints, all these other cool ways that you can get items that I really like as well.
Awesome. And with all of this in mind, and I know even though you've been mainly just playing SWTOR, even though you've like tried out Guild Wars 2 quite a bit ago, do you think that especially like with the new expansion and the content that is continually provided for SWTOR, that it measures up to other MMOs? Like, is there a big reason that this game should be played currently if you have not tried it? And is it good for others?
So there's two different questions that players often ask. I'm a new player. Should I try it? Is it worth my time? And I'm a returning player. Is it worth my time to return? So for a new player, if you've never tried SWTOR, my answer is so short and simple. Just go. Just do it. Just absolutely go. All that stuff about the story we were talking about is still true in 2022. And even if you didn't touch any of the stuff that was added after the launch of the game, you'd be in there for like 200 hours plus. And none of that has changed in 2022. So go. Yes, go. For a returning player, it gets a little more complicated because SWTOR, when it comes to the story and the cutscenes compared to other games, I think is miles above, absolutely. But when it comes to content releases, I don't think it always quite stacks us up to other games. They seem to have a smaller release schedule compared to many other games, which is disappointing, but I'll deal with it. One of the reasons that they do have that smaller release schedule can sometimes seem to be the epic story cutscenes, because they have 8 different classes, 2 different genders, like female and male voice, and then they have 3 languages, so that's 16 times 3. Is that 48? That's a lot of voice actors. Right. I forget the exact number, but they had to get them all on board, plus any side characters in the multiple languages every time that they add new story. So I'd love to see more frequent updates, more frequent story, more frequent operations, but it probably would come at the cost of not having story. So I think I'm okay with it. But yeah, it doesn't quite stack up in terms of all these different releases that we're seeing from other similar games.
And that was actually something I forgot to touch on, was how amazing the voice acting is. Like, some of my dialogue decisions have legitimately been based on, oh, this person really sounds distressed, or that really sounded haunting, or I really like that person's accent. So top notch for anyone that hasn't tried SWTOR yet. Essentially everything is voiced, and it's absolutely incredible. And another thing I really loved, speaking about the narrative, is that people that you had spoken to that were like quest givers, or if you had done some kind of objective for them, they could respond to you later in the mail. And so you can get extra stuff from that. So I was really excited about that too. And going off of their like not having as much story and things like that, or like possibly not having as much to offer for each expansion to keep people, do you think that that might be part of the issue why some people like don't even know SWTOR exists anymore? I get a lot of people being like, or asking,
SWTOR's still alive?
Yeah.
People still play SWTOR?
I thought this game was dead, and I'm like, oh,
I honestly don't know where that impression came from, because obviously there's less people playing SWTOR than, say, World of Warcraft, the biggest game,
Right.
But there's still tons of people playing it. I wouldn't be able to be running a YouTube channel otherwise. It wouldn't be worth it if no one was playing it. Like, we recently reached 150,000 subscribers. I'm like, all these people are interested, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, there were some times during the game's lifetime where the developers made some bad decisions, and I think they've definitely even embraced that, about the future of the game, and that drove a lot of players away. But they've kind of recouped that, and during those time frames, it was bad. There was days where we were on our server and we couldn't even get people to run our raids or operations because there was
Oh,
nobody
wow.
online. But at this point in the game, and it has been this way, I think since about 2017. Oh, it's been like 5 years since it was that bad. But since then, I can always find people to do stuff with. I never have to worry about not having enough people to play with. Its population is doing totally fine. Are there like billions of people playing? No. Are there more than enough people to do whatever type of activity you're trying to do, whether it's PvP, Galactic Starfighter, PvP in space, operations, flashpoints, whatever it is you want to do, you'll be able to find people without too much issue. I was a guild leader for a long time, so I was very in touch with my guildmates' complaints about being able to actually run stuff or not, and I haven't heard them for a very long time. It's been very healthy population for quite a while.
Yeah, that's actually incredible. And it was funny because people kept asking me my opinion on the population compared to other MMOs. And I was like, well, regardless of what the population is, because of the way their server structure is, with having just the two NA servers, was like, you see so many people. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love. That's why I love Guild Wars 2 as well, because I love story, which it's perfect for, and then I just want to see people outside. Like, I don't want to have to be in an instance. I don't want to have to queue. I just want to see people. And I don't know if you feel the same way or if you've had other people
I do,
say
especially
that.
when I first started playing. Although I did like playing with other people, I love this solo aspect. I like being able to do my own thing, to go craft, or to go just hang out on the fleet and chat to a friend, or to go do these story quests that are amazing, or to go do my daily quests, and then know that there was other people around, know that there was other people playing the same game as me, and I could potentially see them or talk to them if I wanted to, but I didn't have to. Star Wars The Old Republic excels in solo play, especially compared to a lot of other similar games. When the game first came out, I don't know if it was their goal or their intention, but they've really embraced it over the years, that solo is a style of play.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we are an MMORPG, massive multiplayer game, but yes, we understand solo players
Right.
are a big part of it, and absolutely great game to solo, but had the potential to play with other players. I love that.
Absolutely. And actually, one of my other things that I was thinking about that I thought was really cool, especially the two places that I saw, was the housing, and then how your guild housing is like on a ship. Essentially, I was
Right.
like, that is so cool. So first of all, my two favorite places, I believe it was Dorman Cass and Alderaan. Oh my gosh, the snowy area, and everybody's like, it's a mansion, it's really expensive, it's huge, you won't be able to fill it. And I was like, but the landscape and how snowy it is. So how do you feel about both the housing and the guild housing, and
Super pretty.
yeah, and they have you literally give someone a key to be able to hang out in your house, like to change things. That's really cool too, I thought. So anyway,
So
I'll let you
compared
take
to
it.
some other games, the housing system is not as movable. You can only put the decorations down in specific locations. We call them hooks. They're like a little landing pad, I guess you could say. You can rotate the decoration within that spot, but you can't make a plinko house like you can in Elder
Right.
Scrolls Online. You can't do these crazy, insane builds, but it does give a lot of opportunity to really make something your own, make it look your own style. And decorations can be got through a lot of different ways. Like we said, there's some on the cash shop, kind of like the armors, but you can always buy them from other players as well, which is how I've gotten a lot of mine. You can earn them through a whole different kind of ways, and then you can decorate your stronghold. And that's something a lot of solo players and group players, I think, like
Mm-hmm.
being able to create your own little space. And then there's quite a few different strongholds to choose from. Like Xandrii said, I tried the Alderaan one, and it was beautiful. And there's a
Yeah.
bunch of different options that you can pick. Yeah, I really like the stronghold decoration system a lot in this game. I've definitely spent a lot of of late nights being like, I need to get this just perfect. And then, like you said, you can also have a guild flagship is what it's known as, or a guild stronghold, and you can actually invite all your guildmates onto it, and your guildmates can actually help decorate that, which is extra cool because your solo one, only you can decorate it, but your guild ones, everyone can contribute or help.
Mm-hmm. And I was surprised that you could actually move it to different areas as well. And I was like,
oh yeah, you can fly the flagship.
Yeah.
That's so neat. You're like through hyperspace, and all of a sudden you're floating over a different planet. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's just those little details where people are like, oh, what did you see this? We're gonna move it here so that we can get this experience. And I was like, oh, you can actually move the ship. That makes so much sense. That's so cool. I'm totally gushing over it because I keep finding things every day while just exploring and being like, oh, this little tidbit is so neat. And I was actually blown away. I was really surprised how much I liked the game. So
I think that's in general a joy of playing something that's been around for 10 years and has been continuously added onto for 10 years is those little joys because someone just kept added onto it. The guild system wasn't nearly as expansive when the game first came out. Like flagships actually came later down the road, and the guild systems have been upgraded over the years, stuff like that. Just very cool to see.
And there's a lot to it too, like doing guild invasions. I haven't even done those. I don't really know what those are if you wanted to elaborate, but I was actually surprised at how big like the guild panel was and how many options you did have. So
did you want me to talk about Conquest?
Sure, go ahead.
So you've actually, there's a good chance you've been contributing towards your guild's success and you may not have even known it. So there's a system called Conquest, and once again, I have guides up about that. And that's a way of participating weekly within the game instead of kind of at your own pace. So each week it resets, and if you complete enough activities that are Conquest activities within the week, you get a prize. So at level 80, you'll actually get some fairly decent currency rewards for picking up different things you need at level 80 endgame. And if you decide to do it with a guild while you're in a guild and your guild decides to invade a planet, not only do you have a personal goal each week, but your guild as a whole has a goal of like 5 million points our guild needs to earn together. And everyone who meets their personal goal, and if your guild meets their overall goal, will get bonus rewards. And it's actually a very lucrative way to make credits, to make in-game money as well. So some activities you may have been doing questing or something, and a conquest objective pops up at the top. Congratulations, Xandrii, you contributed to your guild's overall point pool.
That's so
and that's
cool.
something you can do low level or high level, which is really neat too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the fact that you can still level guilds up is really cool. Like, just seeing
neat.
that level
I like
is
when
really
that was
neat.
added.
But before I let you go, because I don't want to keep you for too long, I had a bunch of people asking about if I'd tried or if I'd known about Hutball. Is that still a thing? What do you do? Some people were talking about being mad about it. I don't even know if it's still in the game, but...
It's a beautiful question, and I hope you do get to try Hutball one day. Hutball is a player versus player match, so I'm sure you know what PvP is, and we have that in this game as well. Some of the matches are kind of cut and dry, defend the tower or kill all the other team before they kill you, but Hutball is a unique experience. It's a little bit like football or soccer. There is a ball that needs to be passed, but there's also a lot of murder, mayhem, and occasionally cannibalism. It's a little bit chaotic. Some people love it. I love the chaos of Hutball. You never know what's going to happen. Some people can hate it because if you get against an organized team by accident, they're absolutely going to decimate you down that football field.
I can see that.
And it's just very strange compared to all the other maps. Some of the maps are even vertical. So imagine football, but up and down. So
I have
Xandrii,
to play.
I do have an important piece of advice for you, though.
Okay.
Don't kick the Hutball.
Well, what do you do with it then?
To throw it. Huts don't have feet.
Oh. Okay. It's so fantastic. Like, people were saying that they loved it or they hated it, and people were talking about never playing it again or being happy about not having to play it again. And I was like, wait, is it still in the game?
Still there.
So, okay.
It's definitely polarizing, though.
I will have to try it. That sounds really intriguing, especially having something that's like vertical maps. Okay. And so before we close, is there anything that specifically for a new player, any type of advice that you would give to anyone new, or something that you feel like we missed that should really be discussed?
If you're a new player, know that feeling overwhelmed is a very, very common feeling. You are not alone. Ideally, you wouldn't feel overwhelmed, but you probably will be. Don't feel like you have to know everything. Don't feel you have to explore everything. Don't feel you have to learn everything at once. Just start by enjoying your story. And if you start feeling like you're ready to expand, pick a single topic. There are tons of different people covering them in different ways, either streaming, videos, podcasts, articles, blogs, and start researching that way whenever you're ready to expand to those different parts of the game, because there's 10 years worth of content to explore. So take your time and enjoy.
And I'm sure you can find those articles, blogs, and news on the SWTORista website. So if you want to talk about that one more time.
Not just me. There's actually a lot of really great creators out there. One of the ways we found that I wanted to share them is on SWTORfancommunity.com. And you can find a lot of those creators creating all kinds of different things in all those different formats. I do run a website. I'm not the only one, though, I promise. But if you are looking for my guides specifically, they're all on SWTORista.com. Or you can go on my YouTube, same thing, SWTORista, and I live stream, twitch.tv/SWTORista.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate it. This has been really informative, especially for me too. And everyone, I will try to have as many links as possible to as many different places so that you can find all of this information in the description and probably a pinned comment as well. So thank you again. I really do appreciate it.
See you later.